Imagine this. A young mother gets into her SUV, preparing to head to work at her FedEx job. It's early morning, the sun hasn't even risen yet. Moments later, she's shot in the head in her own driveway. The community is devastated. Friends, family, coworkers, all searching for answers. And then, just a few days later, one of her coworkers posts a long emotional Facebook tribute, calling her a bright star, sharing photos from her vigil, and promising justice in her name. But here's the chilling twist. Only 3 days later, that same coworker is arrested and charged with her murder. This is the heartbreaking story of Morgan Fox, a devoted mother, daughter, and colleague whose life was cut short in the most shocking way. Before we dive deeper, let me share why we're telling this story. On this channel, our focus is to bring awareness of what could go wrong in this crazy world we live in. Every day, ordinary people go about their lives, going to work, raising their families, chasing their dreams, never imagining that tragedy could strike so close to home. By sharing stories like Morgan's, we're not celebrating the killer. Instead, we're shining a light on warning signs, hidden dangers, and the unpredictable ways that obsession and violence can tear lives apart. Our hope is that these stories help us all pay attention, protect those we love, and remember that awareness is often the first step to safety. Rest in peace, Morgan Fox People. Who was Morgan Fox? Morgan Ashley Fox was just 29 years old. Her loved ones described her as warm, dependable, and deeply devoted to her family. She lived in North Canton, Ohio, with her boyfriend and her 8-year-old daughter, the center of her world. Professionally, Morgan worked as an operations manager at a FedEx facility. She had earned respect for her leadership, her work ethic, and her ability to inspire others. To her coworkers, she wasn't just a manager, she was a steady hand they could rely on. Morgan's life was full of purpose and potential, and that's what makes what happened next so devastating. The morning of October 28th, 2020. It was early morning, October 28th, 2020. Morgan walked outside to her SUV, parked in the driveway of her Fraser Avenue home. The neighborhood was still and quiet. She likely thought it would be just another workday, but it wasn't. As Morgan sat in her car, she was shot in the head. The attacker fled into the darkness, leaving her behind. Later, when her boyfriend came home from work, he discovered her lifeless body inside the SUV and called 911. In one horrifying instant, her daughter lost her mother, her family lost their anchor, and her community lost a bright light. The investigation begins. At first, investigators had little to go on. Who would want Morgan dead? She had no known enemies, no history of dangerous relationships. Attention quickly turned to her workplace, the FedEx facility where she managed operations. Among the people questioned was one of her coworkers, 29-year-old Jason McDermott. Police emphasized that Morgan and Jason were not romantically involved. They were simply coworkers. She had never introduced him to her family, and her stepsister later said she had never even heard his name before the arrest. But as investigators dug deeper, Jason would move from just another name on a list to the prime suspect. The disturbing Facebook tribute. 4 days after Morgan's death, something strange appeared on social media. On November 1st, 2020, Jason McDermott posted a long emotional tribute to Morgan on Facebook. He addressed her as Foxy, a nickname, and wrote about how much she had impacted his life. He called her a bright light, claimed she had left a hole in his heart, and even shared photos from her candlelight vigil. He ended his post with the hashtag Justice for Morgan Ashley. On the surface, it looked like a grieving coworker honoring a friend. But for Morgan's family, the post felt wrong. They didn't know him, and the way he inserted himself into their grief seemed disturbing. Her stepsister Megan Barrett later said, "This is a really sick person, somebody who's messed up in the head and likes to see people in pain." And tragically, she was right. The arrest. On November 4th, 2020, just 3 days after his tribute, Stark County deputies arrested Jason McDermott at his home in Canton. He was charged with aggravated murder in the death of Morgan Fox. For Morgan's family, the arrest confirmed what their hearts had already suspected. The man who had pretended to grieve her online was the very person accused of taking her life. He was booked into jail and held on $2 million bail while awaiting trial. The truth emerges. As the investigation continued, more details came to light. Prosecutors argued that Jason had developed an unhealthy fixation on Morgan. This wasn't about workplace rivalry. It wasn't a random act. It was an obsession. Jason had blurred the lines between coworker and something more in his own mind. and when reality didn't match his fantasy, it escalated into violence. The Facebook tribute, which once looked like grief, now looked like manipulation, a way to hide his guilt, to control the story, and perhaps even to taunt those who loved Morgan. Trial and conviction. In April 2021, Jason McDermott went to trial. He was charged not only with aggravated murder, but also with stalking, painting a clearer picture of his behavior before the killing. The jury found him guilty on all counts. The judge handed down the harshest sentence possible: life in prison with no chance of parole. Jason will never walk free again. For Morgan's family, it was justice, but it could never undo the pain of losing her. Civil lawsuit and settlement. Even after the conviction, Morgan's family sought accountability from FedEx Ground. They argued the company had failed to protect her from harassment and stalking at work. In 2023, FedEx reached a settlement with her family. The terms included the creation of a trust in Morgan's name to provide for her daughter's future. It was one small measure of support to help a child grow up without her mother. Why Morgan? The hardest question remains: why Morgan? Investigators believe her killer built a false story in his head, mistaking professional courtesy for something more. When that illusion collapsed, his obsession turned violent. For Morgan, this meant being targeted by someone she barely knew, someone who hid his fixation until it was too late. This is why awareness matters. Stalking is not harmless, obsession is not love, and red flags, even small ones, deserve attention. Morgan's legacy. Morgan's death left her community reeling. Her family lost a daughter and sister, her coworkers lost a respected leader, and her daughter lost her mother far too soon. For those who loved her, the most haunting part wasn't just the crime itself, it was the idea that the man responsible pretended to mourn alongside them, turning their grief into another act of manipulation. But Morgan's legacy endures through the trust created in her name, through the love her family continues to show her daughter, and through the awareness her story now raises. Lessons from this case. This story isn't just about one crime, it's about what we can all learn. Boundaries matter. Workplaces aren't immune to obsession. Stalking is serious. Even small red flags can point to larger danger. Social media can deceive. The words people post online don't always reflect the truth. Morgan's story reminds us to stay aware, trust our instincts, and take signs of obsession seriously. Closing reflection and channel mission. Morgan Fox was a young mother, a daughter, a sister, and a friend. Her life was stolen in a moment of senseless violence, leaving behind a daughter who will grow up with memories instead of moments. Her killer now spends his life behind bars, but Morgan's name deserves to be the one we remember. And that brings us back to the heart of this channel. Our mission here is not to spotlight criminals, it's to honor victims like Morgan, to tell their stories truthfully, and to raise awareness about the dangers that sometimes hide in plain sight. On this channel, our focus is to bring awareness of what could go wrong in this crazy world we live in. Not to spread fear, but to shine a light so we can recognize red flags, protect ourselves and our families, and hopefully prevent future tragedies. What do you think? Do you believe Jason McDermott's Facebook post was a guilty conscience or pure manipulation? Let me know in the comments below. And if Morgan's story touched you, please share it, because the more we talk about cases like this, the more we can raise awareness and honor her memory. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more true crime stories that matter. Till next time, my friends, be safe, be aware, and be alert. It truly is a crazy world we live in.